Mosgiel this morning. And just like to welcome you all to the balmy, temperate, subtropical climate we now have here in Dunedin. So if there is global warming, it's a fairly good example that it just may be happening out there. So we've got two of our key market partners here with me this morning, but before I hand over to Mark and Rod, I'm just going to spend a little bit of time just giving a little bit of an update on where things are at within Duncan's as well. So our goal is to ensure dairy farming is sustainably and consistently profitable. And that's the industry's goal, but it very much sits within our company. If we don't have a sustainable and profitable dairy industry, well, we don't have a business. We've got only 2 plants. Rotorua and Mosgiel, we employ about 70 production staff. We have about 5 other head office staff, so we're a pretty small overhead cost business, and we think we're a pretty efficient business. And a pretty straightforward focus really on having great staff, great supplies, great customers, combined with a fantastic product that you guys produce, put excellent service together with that, and then deliver a consistent premium back to our farmers. Our brand, last year when I presented, we showed you just where we were trying to take the brand. We've delivered on that now, we're producing it. Mark here today is going to talk about his business, Broadleaf, and what we pack for him is in his brand for the US market. We have another customer in the US that we pack it for their brand. Why do we do that? Because those guys compete very much in the same market, so we make sure they don't compete with the same brand, and we produce under theirs. For the rest of the world, we pack under Duncan's brand, and it's Duncan New Zealand Venison. And 95% of our product will finish up in a restaurant, so the chef gets to see the carton. So what the impression we give him of that carton is absolutely critical. So we use a sustainable material, and we present what we think is a pretty strong impression with our tagline, the natural taste of New Zealand. When they open that carton, we want to give them the impression they've paid $200 or 200 euros to have a small carton of, in that case, Deeskin strip loins. So, the impression of premium, make sure they feel that they've bought something that's absolutely first class, high value, because they are paying a real premium for this product. So, we constantly install to our people in the plants. We've got our plant managers here from Mosgiel plant today. That the last person closes that lid on that carton is the person that ensures the impression that our customer gets wherever they are in the world. And everybody in the plant has got a step to play in making sure we deliver on the promise we set. So, okay, a little bit of a quick review on market. So the USA, 16% of New Zealand's total venison, so it's growing, it's moving up. It's our second largest market in the world as an industry perspective, and it takes 25% of New Zealand's chilled exports. It is our second largest over market, largest chilled market. And those volumes in the last year are up about 14%. The biggest growth has actually been in manufacturing trim for ground venison. I'm sure Mark will tap into that, but as Mike mentioned, that falls very, very much into the natural grass-fed demand which is growing around the world, and New Zealand venison is absolutely filling that opportunity. In addition though, we've got to continue growing our high value items, so we've got to make sure we're promoting and developing and working on those. And there's a lot of competition in that space, so we don't have it to ourselves. Bison, Wagyu, Wild Boar are just a few of those products that we compete with. But for us, it's about 25 years of investment in this market. It's not something you don't get there overnight. It's working with Mark for over 20 years to build up what is now a very, very good position and delivering premiums back to farmers and developing Savannah venison as very much a demand protein in the market. A little bit of a look at Europe. The chilled demand back in their very small season, which is the end of the year, was very, very strong for the October to December arrival. So much so, a lot of product was air freighted to meet that additional demand that came there. Certainly there's lower stocks in New Zealand, lower frozen stocks, and that's tightened up supply. But the last 3 winters in Europe have been very mild, so there's been a growth in the domestic game. So the hunted game over there, the red deer, the roe deer, the wild boar have all increased because of those mild winter conditions. So there's more domestic game that we're competing against in that market. Fortunately, we don't have that competition in the US because their domestic game isn't able to be sold legally into the market there as far as venison is concerned. But in Europe, it very much is in that competitive space. There's still concerns within Europe about the amount of frozen product that may be sitting in the market, both European product and some New Zealand product that may still be there. And until very recently, those European buyers have been very cautious So they've been pretty reluctant, and there wasn't too much action going on the first couple of months of this year. Now they've seen what's happening in terms of the decline in production, and the situation's changing. But a lot of those customers believe that this year won't see a dramatic change in their market because of the amount of frozen product that may be in store. There's certainly going to be a dramatic change as far as the chilled season is concerned, but I think where things will really kick in will be in 2017. So this year we'll hoover up any retained frozen product that's still in the market. There'll be a shortage of chilled, but next year there's going to be, no doubt about it, a big change in the availability of venison right across both frozen and chilled. So we see that impact really more in 2017. So just a couple of things around that, and around expectations. I think it's important to look at what's happening in the currency space, because nothing has a bigger impact, or will have a bigger impact. If somebody says to me, what's your price going to be in September? I'll say, well, what's the currency going to do? The market price is stable. We've got a pretty good idea where that's going to be. The big uncertainty is what's going to happen with our dollar. So at the moment, unfortunately, it's on the increase, or it has been on the increase. It's eased back a little bit since Australia took some heat out of their dollar in the last week. But this shows a relativity from where we were at the last chilled season. Is this thing will point? Okay, so if we look at where we were in the last chilled season, we had a New Zealand dollar around 64 US. We're currently at 67.5, so we've increased, and the euro is around 57 and 59.5. So what does that all mean? When the schedules peaked last year at 8.75, those were the rates that occurred in both the US dollar and the euro. If you put today's exchange rate on that 8.75, take 40 cents off it straight away, it's $8.35. So when you're thinking about the gap to the chilled season price at the moment, you need to be thinking that on today's currency, the best prices paid last year were $8.35. So certainly market prices can increase, but they were already pretty much at the top of the market, so there's not a lot of room for them to move. And so we're really pushing at the top of the range. We've got to be really careful that we don't push prices over a tipping point. Tipping point is where you get to a level where consumers in the retail stores and the restaurants simply won't buy the product. It's just got too expensive. There's a lot of choice for them. Yeah, Mike also mentioned that New Zealand doesn't set the global price on red meat. We're too small. So we're reliant on what other proteins are doing, what other choices consumers have. Now, if we look at this in venison, these are the average published schedules. So the purple line up the top there is venison, and you can see that the gap's continuing to grow. We've got sheep and beef, lamb and beef prices here. So that gap has increased dramatically from a year ago. You've got obviously dairy prices here, and unfortunately mutton down here. Now the mutton will be closer to where you've got your competing pork and poultry prices. So the gap between those and where venison sits from a consumer perspective is already enormous. The gap between venison and high quality lamb and beef protein has doubled in the last year. So just remember, there's a limit to what consumers will pay. We've got to be really careful here that we don't try to drive market prices based on overheated procurement prices and push our product, which has got a really, really stable market demand at the moment, to levels that we create an unstable situation. And the changes in the last year, quite dramatic. You can see there, lamb prices are down by 4%, mutton 20%, beef down slightly. Venison the clear winner at the moment in terms of where prices have moved up 19%. So things are going really, really well. They're in a really good space at the moment. Let's just all make sure we don't damage the opportunity that really sits in front of us. So what is the situation there? I'm a bit of a Far Side fan, so to me, this sort of sums it up. It's going to hurt this year, but it's a good kind of hurt. The killer's down. We're going to be about 320,000 probably. Hopefully 17% at the moment. The kill's down 22% in the first 4 months of this year. But that's because of much needed hind retention. Expect a significant reduction in the amount of deer we've got available in September, October, because most of those animals are hinds. So 80% of what we would kill in September, October is hinds. So, we all know what that's probably going to impact that's going to be in that critical period. So the challenge for exporters is to not overcommit and for all of us to not exceed sustainable market pricing. So that's almost enough from me. Last year, this is a slide I actually put up at the conference, was about customers in the value chain, and made the comment that a lot of people say you need to take some steps out of the value chain. Well, you can only take a step out of the value chain if you can replace the function it performs. The most important thing is actually to understand what those value chains are. These two guys here today are going to discuss that in some detail. They've both got, they're integrated companies with an investment in the value chain. They provide the importing, the financing, security of payment. They reduce our risk. You know, Mark pays us before the product turns up in his market. He's then got to manage all those next steps. He's got to look after customs, transport, cold storage, palletisation. He does a lot of processing of products. He's got to have a sales team to sell the products. Buying's easy. Selling's the tough part. They promote the product, they distribute the product, and then at the end of it, hopefully they get paid. So they do a whole bunch of stuff in the market that they don't get.